Hey everyone, thanks so much for joining me for Chronicles in Collecting, where I'm going to take a look at the Riobot Jehuty from Zone of the Enders, a 2001 PlayStation 2 game that had 2 sequels and various remasters. There was also an OVA that came out in March of 2001 and a follow-up 26-episode anime series that ran from April to September of 2001. This figure came out in October 2013 and retailed for 12,215 yen, or about $125 US at the time. So today's figure is actually two firsts. It is the first figure from a line called Riobot, and I think it's actually the first figure I've done that's based on a character from a video game, or a character that is primarily from a video game, obviously. Super Robot Wars and Gundam games exist. So yeah, Riobot is a line that I kind of got interested in when they announced this like big Super Robot Wars set that like did a whole bunch of cool stuff. And that has still not come out yet. It's been delayed a few times, but I think it's supposed to come out next month. But let's take a quick look at this figure here. But yeah, anyway, I think sort of generally speaking, Riobot is, just a little bit more focused on quote-unquote newer things. And I'll say quote-unquote because, Zone of the Enders is certainly not a new property. I think the first game came out in like 2002 or 2003 or something like that. But, I guess new compared to like Soul of Chogokin, which is, only focused on stuff. Start taking a look at some of these weapons here. I have no idea what this is. It might be like a construction piece or something like that. I know like in the game, one of the mechanics is that you kind of just grab whatever is around and use it as a weapon or use it to protect yourself or something like that. But yeah, so, Riobot's focusing on, stuff, let's say, from the 2000s, whereas I would say typically Soul of Chogokin is, mostly dealing with a lot of stuff from the 70s and 80s, though they do come into the 90s, and occasionally something a little bit newer than that. And then, Riobot, recently they just announced a big, like, Gurren Lagann figure, which I'm really excited about. Magic Knight Rayearth, which I guess is 90s. But yeah, a lot of cool stuff. So I think expect to see a lot more Riobot stuff on this channel, because I definitely have a lot of it on pre-order. So yeah, for anyone who's not familiar with Zone of the Enders, it's a PlayStation 2 game. Take a quick look, kind of a whole bunch of hands there. Some of them have pegs, it looks like, for some of the weapons to put in there. But yeah, PlayStation 2 game. It's like, you're flying in a mech or whatever. It's by Hideo Kojima, of Metal Gear Solid fame. I'm actually not a huge fan of the game. I replayed the VR version of it last year, but the suits in it are really cool. And this one sort of has like a little bit of like a funnel thing going on, like a remote, kind of weapon sort of thing. And I do love funnels, so figured I'd pick it up. There's actually 2 that they did. There's 4 of those, but they're all pretty much the same thing, so I don't think we need to look at it. Oh, and this is actually a pretty cool stand. We'll certainly see this when I do the posing, but this kind of like ring that goes around him. But yeah, so anyway, I'm going to be back, pose this guy, and I'll be back in a few minutes with some final thoughts. All right, and we are back. So let's get this guy on the rotating stand while I give some final thoughts. Got a lot of good things to say about this figure and a lot of bad things. And I don't think we're going to be able to get this thing to rotate without falling over, which is a heads up on some of the bad things. Okay, so let's start with some of the good. Amazing figure, great detailing. I think that it looks great. Let me just center this a little bit more. And there we go. And we will try again. So yeah. Detailing is really nice on the figure. I think it's a high quality figure. It's actually very posable. The instructions do a pretty good job of showing you how to like kind of move the joints in different ways, so you can kind of get the full posability. And there's kind of this nice like kind of before and after to show you, just because a lot of times you're kind of stabbing in the dark. A lot of really cool just little nods to the game with the accessories. Right here there's like a little enemy indicator like on this ring with the shield things. Like I said before, it kind of has, and I confirmed in the instruction booklet, it does have this kind of like construction materials that you can kind of like grab on to kind of replicate that from the game. Actually, there we go again. And then yeah, it even has a hand accessory so that you can kind of use the base as like another piece of construction material. Because in the game you're like kind of pulling pieces of metal off of structures and using them as a shield and stuff like that. So lots of cool little nods to the game, lots of cool details. Now let's go to the bad. This stand is just absolutely horrible. You could see just in just doing one rotation on the stand, it fell like 2 or 3 times. It just kept falling over and over and over again. The stand really just can't support the weight. Honestly, even before I put the ring on, I was still having trouble. So once I knew I had to put the ring on, I was like, this is going to be even worse. Because the stand is just really hard to recommend this figure. I know that every single time I walk by this, it's going to have fallen over. I'm going to have to adjust it or prop it up against something, and just makes for a not very fun, experience, and it makes for a not very good display piece if it's just constantly going to be falling over. And every time it falls over, there's a possibility to damage this figure or whatever figures are nearby it. I'm honestly not 100% sure how I'm going to get it in my display case so that it doesn't fall over. So I guess the final verdict, figure itself, really, really, really nice. Like the accessories, like the materials, like the coloring, like the paintwork. But just sort of as a practical concern, I'm just, it's just really, really hard to recommend this. Just because it's kind of miserable to deal with, and I don't know if there's going to be a way to really display it, safely. But, this was one of the early Riobots. I think it's like the 4th in the series or something like that. So I'm hoping that maybe some of the later ones, especially that have, less intricate pieces and a less intricate display and maybe a sturdier set of feet, will stand up more on its own and hopefully alleviate this issue in some of the future figures. Anyway, thanks so much for checking out this video. If you enjoyed it, I'd really appreciate a like or subscribe. And if you didn't, tell me about it in the comments. I do figures every week. I was doing them Wednesdays and Fridays. I'm not 100% sure what days I'm going to be doing going forward. In, I think, the second week of April, A Main Warrior at the Borderline is going to restart, so I'm going to be doing those reviews. I think it's going to be airing on Tuesdays. So I think I'm probably going to do those on Tuesdays and then the figure on Fridays, but I'll do Wednesdays and Fridays until then. I'm not 100% sure what I'm going to be doing next week. I'm sort of just playing it by ear as new figures come in the mail. Some stuff's been caught up and a lot of figure delays, so my schedule is a little up in the air. But, I have a huge backlog, so there will always be something to open and something to check out. Thanks so much, and keep collecting.